Welcome back to another explainer. Now, right off the bat, as a dedicated translator of Poly-Buddhist texts, I have a very strict rule for how we approach this stuff. I absolutely never look at Sanskrit, I never look at Chinese equivalents, and I definitely don't rely on those heavy traditional English translations. Instead, we're diving straight into the raw data of the mind to uncover some pretty incredible psychological life hacks. I mean, just imagine discovering that the teachings you always thought were heavy moral judgments about being a quote-unquote bad person were actually just pure mechanical psychology. For centuries, texts like the Pali Canon have been translated through this really thick lens of Victorian morality. But what if we stripped all that away and read them like an ancient engineering manual for human consciousness? The translation gap here is absolutely staggering. Here's my exact process. First, I grab the baseline dictionary definitions from the Pali Text Society, or the DP Dictionary. But then, and this is where the magic happens, I put on my ancient Magadhi linguist hat. Using the atta, or the true intent from the neti, and the nirutti, the deep linguistic root insights from the Pacchisambhita, we bypass the dictionary and hit the actual root of the word. Finally, as a visual storyteller, I'm going to paint this translation gap for you using bright, high-contrast imagery so you can literally see these mechanics at work. We aren't looking at moral judgments, we are looking at literal, physical descriptions of human stress. Okay, so let's open up an ancient source text called the Itivuttaka, specifically Discourse 50. Here we find three foundational elements called mūla. Think of these as the underlying gears, the core engine driving all of our mental stress and dissatisfaction. They are known as lobha, dosa, and moha. Let's dive right into that first gear, lobha, and see how looking at the linguistic mechanics completely changes our understanding of it. If you check standard English translations, or even just a basic dictionary, you'll almost always see lobha translated as greed. Honestly, that sounds like a deep moral flaw, right? A sin? But if we use our neuridity insights and dig down to the ancient Magadhi root lub, we find a completely neutral mechanical action: sticky adhesion. It isn't a judgment about your soul. It's a precise physical description of how your attention behaves. Now put on your visual storyteller lenses for a second. I want you to visualize this: a massive, glowing, hyper-realistic drop of sticky, high-saturation neon sap, and it's catching a fly. That is lobha. It is the action of the mind getting helplessly glued to an object, a person, an outcome, or even just a passing thought. You know that exhausting feeling when your attention just won't detach from something? Yeah, that's the sap. And here is why understanding this mechanic is an absolute game changer. In the very first discourse of the Itivuttaka, the text offers a radical, ironclad guarantee if you can simply unstick your mind and abandon this one habit, this sticky sap. You achieve freedom from that stress. You just have to dissolve the glue. All right, moving on to the second root, dosa. Let's see how this builds on our mechanical understanding of the mind. So if lama is the glue, dosa is an entirely different reaction. Rather than framing this as the moral failing of hate or anger, which again feels like a heavy personal indictment, let's look at the Magadhi root dus. It literally means to spoil, to corrupt, or to actively repel. We're talking about severe internal friction here. To visualize this, don't think of some abstract angry emotion. Picture two bright, high-contrast neon magnets violently repelling each other, right over a highly saturated, burning drop of acid. It's vivid, right? Dosa is the corrosive action of the mind actively pushing reality away, simply because it refuses to accept the present moment. And just like with the sticky sap, Itivuttaka 2 repeats that exact same bold guarantee. Drop the internal friction. Stop those repulsive magnets from fighting each other. The second you shut off that specific physical repulsion, you instantly free yourself from the immense, exhausting pressure it creates. Now, let's hit the third root, which is probably the most misunderstood gear of the whole bunch: moha. This is the condition that actually allows the glue and the acid to keep operating in the first place. You'll almost always see moha translated as delusion, but applying our neurity insights to the root mu, we get something entirely different. It describes a physical, immersive state of being stupefied, bewildered, or completely entangled in a thick fog. It is literally a system stall. Visualize walking into a thick, glowing, impenetrable neon fog that completely obscures a bright path forward. Your awareness is totally blocked. Your mental windshield is frosted over, and you are just flying blind. It's not that you're a fundamentally flawed, ignorant person, you're just caught in a dense mental mirage. Once again, in Itivuttaka 3, we're told that actively clearing this dense mental fog is a direct, guaranteed path to liberation from stress. Because think about it, when the fog lifts, your navigation system suddenly works again, and you simply stop crashing into things. It makes perfect sense. Okay, so how do these three mechanics, the glue, the acid, and the fog, actually play out in our daily, constantly stressed out lives? Well, they fuel a mechanic the texts call isana. Now, standard dictionaries casually translate this as seeking, but the ancient root is actually means the forceful act of propelling outward, or shooting like a high-speed arrow. This isn't a casual stroll in the park looking for something. It is a relentless, ballistic drive. According to Itivuttaka Discourse 54, we are constantly firing these arrows at three main targets. First, kama, the pursuit of physical, sensory pleasures. Second, bhava, the endless, exhausting drive to create a new identity or status. And third, and this one is wildly ironic, brahmacharya, the tense, rigid pursuit of spiritual perfection itself. Let's paint the full picture here. Picture endless, bright neon arrows continuously firing outward into the dark, all launching from a central, foggy core. When you combine the sticky glue of lobha, the corrosive friction of dosa, and the blinding fog of moha, it keeps this internal engine firing nonstop. Honestly, it's no wonder we feel so drained at the end of the day. Our minds are literally operating like automatic weapons of desire. So, how do we actually hack this system? This brings us to the ultimate resolution found hidden beneath the translation gap. This ancient source material isn't demanding that you fall to your knees and repent for being a bad person. Not at all. It's offering a precise psychological blueprint for turning off the exhausting machinery of unhappiness. It's simple mechanics. Stop the arrows, unstick the glue, drop the friction, clear the fog. So I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to explore on your own. If your anxiety, your frustration, and your stress are actually just physical, mechanical habits, glue, friction, and fog, what happens the exact moment you simply decide to stop firing the arrows? Because once you vividly see the inner workings of your own mind, the choice to keep firing, well, that is entirely up to you.